I just lost $25. Knew I should have bet against you.
All right, so we're here at PTS Fab. Got Liam on the dyno, strapped down and ready to go. We're gonna test a couple of things. We'll just get into it right now. So this first pass is just going to be long awaited. What does it make as it sits right now? Because we've been racing it in Texas for quite a bit and we haven't put it on the dyno yet. It made around like 800 or 850 in Colorado. It feels like it's making a significant amount more down here, but I have no idea. I haven't taken it to a track, so I don't know what mile an hour we're doing. We've just been doing a bunch of racing on the street. So gonna see what it makes, and then we're gonna test a couple of things with the intercooler. So we're gonna see what the value is of icing down our water to air intercooler, because most of the time we just run it completely just with water. It's got a heat exchanger in the back that it goes through, gets cooled down by, but we don't ever put any ice in the reservoir. So I wish I had an intake air temp sensor to give some readings on that, but I don't. So we're just gonna see with 0 timing changes, what is the difference in power between running it the way we always run it and icing it down. It was a little bit lower than I was thinking it was, but right in there, so that's good.
That was what, 17, 18 pounds?
Had to have been just below 18 or maybe 18 because I hit the limiter on that one. I didn't get a recording of not hitting the limiter, so it might have gone up at the very end to like 18 or so.
Yeah, it's got a fucking fat curve on it though.
Yeah, it's always been a nice thing about that. I've never taken it on the dyno above 65, so I've never seen it fall.
Sure.
So going up to this, at least it did that. Nice, okay.
And what was the limiter set at?
68.
That's perfect.
Is that basically where it ended? Yeah.
For the most part.
All right, so that made right at about 900. That was kind of what we were thinking it was going to be. I thought anywhere from 900 to 950. So the power that I was making in Colorado was about 850-ish. Whenever the truck is on the dyno, it reads a little bit lower than it seems to act out at the track or out on the street. I think that might still be going on here. I can't get the load that we need to show the accurate number. Because right now it's doing about 18 pounds. And on the street it does just under 20. So I think 950 is actually exactly what we're doing. It's probably another pound and a half or 2 pounds or so, and I think it would do that number. So I would say we're right in the 950 range, which is where we thought we would be. 5 pounds more than what we were doing in Colorado. Because this turbo's maxed out. It just always does 100% no matter what. And so in Colorado, because we have 84 kPa as our atmospheric pressure, we were only able to get about 15 pounds out of that turbo. Up here, we're able to get about 20, in the same, like street for street, at the track, not on the dyno. So that accounts for, well, it's basically atmosphere. So even though there's only about 2.8 PSI difference in atmosphere, we're able to produce another 5 PSI out of this turbo. So that's what it's given us. So we want to check now. That was with completely just water going through the heat exchanger and our intercooler that we normally do. Now we're just going to pack the shit out of it with ice so that it's freezing cold water going through there and see if that makes any difference. So a lot of people end up getting a big change in intake air temp in power because they also have timing compensations based on intake air temp. I don't have any because I don't have an intake air temp sensor. So any gain we get is going to be purely from temperature. It's going to be having that colder air coming into the motor. So I'm curious to see how much that's actually worth instead of seeing the air get colder and therefore the engine management system adding more timing. So it kind of skews the results. We'll pack it in and see what it does. All right, so we drained out a bunch of the water so that we could fit more ice in here. So it's pretty well packed in there. I don't want to touch it too much because that water is really gross. That's like the same water that's been in there for probably, I'd say a good 5-6 months. I haven't changed it out. There's a whole ecosystem living in there. So now that we got that ice down, I'm assuming, so the only thing that we can know for sure, because I don't have an intake air temp sensor in there, is that it's the water going through the intercooler is going to be significantly colder. That's about all we can guarantee for sure. What the intake air temp is, what the difference is going through the intercooler, I'm not really sure, because like I said, I don't have a sensor. But this will just say, I mean, it'll at least tell us, all right, with colder water, what is the horsepower difference with a water to air intercooler, iced versus not iced, on this setup. And this doesn't apply to all of them, but it's a pretty efficient setup. I've never once had to retard any timing, you know, even on 100-degree days, doing full boost, multiple passes back to back. Everything just basically goes from the reservoir through the intercooler and then back up to this heat exchanger, which has these fans running at all times, and then back into the reservoir. So realistically, when I'm driving around, it's pretty much just running off of this. So the way we assumed that it was going to work is just like an air-to-air for the most part, at least like an air-to-air of that size when we're not icing it down. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. It's just regular water, ambient air temp, cooling it off. So if it's 100 degrees out, that's the only thing that is doing, is cooling using 100-degree ambient air, probably even hotter from road temp. And it's always worked good so far. So curious to see what kind of power increases, if any, can be gained from icing this setup down. And how you want to apply that to other intercoolers, that's up to you. So that pole was completely iced, and funny story, the first pole that we just did that we thought was water flowing through but no ice, well, we didn't realize at some point the fuse blew for the intercooler water pump, so that was no water whatsoever. So that was like a test of no intercooler, basically, because we did 3 poles that we screwed up because the dyno wasn't working, and then let it idle for a long time. Like, it was plenty heat soaked. We did a temp gun on the outside and it was like 250 degrees. So that first pole that made, what did the first one make, like 908 or something?
906.
906. And then this pole with completely iced down, cold intercooler to the touch. And yeah, I mean, as ideal as you can do with this intercooler, it made 918. So it's giant down low though. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, but he picked up a decent amount of pounds.
Yeah, 871 to 919. So overall numbers aren't impressive at all, but
yeah, 150 horsepower.
that's
curve.
That is freaking huge.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything different. We whacked it at the same, basically.
It all comes back together right around here.
Yeah.
So I mean, most of it on the.
I wonder if this though. I did start the pole at a lower RPM.
Yeah, but I mean,
Might have given it more time for it to make boost earlier.
yeah, I could have loaded it a little harder.
It's the only thing I can think of.
We'll give you
So it
log
could come
see
up
when it
sooner.
comes in.
That's true. I didn't log that one.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would almost say it's running on a turbo.
Oh, well, we
As far
definitely know that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's interesting.
that.
Yeah. If it's out of turbo, we got something for that. But take that as you will. These gains were all down low. They were significant gains. I'll give it that. I did kind of screw up because I didn't start the run at the same RPM, so we might have allowed it to ramp a little bit earlier on this one. But even still, I think that still would have been a pretty significant. If we move this over a little bit, I think the curves are still higher than each other. But definitely being out of turbo, that little guy's been maxed out for a long time, so we're gonna give him a break because that's about all it can do. And then I tried getting an 80, so that's a 75 on there. I tried to get an 80, but the universe did not agree. So now we have this honking thing. It's
76.
yeah, it's 76, so no big deal.
Cheaters.
So we specifically tried to get a turbo that was going to be exactly the same, or at least close enough to that, so that we could literally take it off on the dyno, put the new one on in its place, and just immediately start tuning. So obviously a couple of things we gotta, swap over the fittings for the drain and the feed, but hopefully the outlet type on the compressor housing is the same, but hopefully it's lined up enough to where we got some wiggle room in that. But then the hot side is supposed to be identical. It's a 96 wheel in the old turbo, it's a 96 wheel in this one, T6 132s on both. So we're just gonna leave that housing on and try to put this turbo into that housing. So we have a couple less variables, I guess. Not having to undo the downpipe or anything like that. That's what we'll do, and we'll see what kind of gain you get going from a 75 to a 76 or 88. Alright, so Nick managed to swap the turbo out in like 10 minutes. So yeah, the only thing different, went from a 75 millimeter to a slightly bigger 75 millimeter, since we're probably gonna need more fuel. The other one maxed out when it was around 20 pounds. These injectors were at about 84% duty cycle. So we increased the fuel pressure to see if we can squeeze a little bit more out of the injectors, because I think we still are good with pump. We'll be under a decent amount under 100 psi total, as long as we stay at a relatively decent boost with this one. So should have the fuel to pick up some significant horsepower, and yeah, we'll see what the new power band of this other 75 millimeter is. A little bit of background on why we even went to a bigger turbo in the first place. The problem with this truck has always been lack of power. We really don't put down a crazy amount of power, and but we're pretty good at using it, getting it to leave well on really crappy surfaces. That's always been something that we have to be good at because we lack the power. So coming down here to Texas, man, everybody is fast as hell, and we've just been in a number of scenarios where we just don't have enough power to compete. So this is the first step, getting a bigger turbo that's capable of more power, because that 75 was maxed out a while ago. It was maxed out in Colorado, maxed out here, with only a little bit more power. Second thing would be transmission. Still got to get that. We're going to work with Prime and Robert to get our transmission the lockup that it should have. We slip entirely too much right now. I think it's around 25%. With this more power, we're probably going to slip even worse, but we'll see. We'll take a log of it and see what the slip is, and that'll be the next thing that we have to remedy. But I think this turbo is going to work out pretty good. I was only wanting an 80, but 88 was what presented itself as available for this weekend, so that's what we went with. So yeah, we'll see how it does.
so big.
You're not supposed to be there. 1150.
You don't want coolant pressure on this thing, do you?
No.
Great. Now I get to bitch at you for not having sensors.
I know.
I love it.
Well, I just lost $25.
I told you not to do it.
I told you not to do that.
Well, I didn't mean to. You meant to.
I knew I should have bet against you. Should always go with my instincts.
Pretty much. All right, so that did not go as planned. So obviously we had some issues on the dyno. I don't think it was anything about the way that it was running. Everything was going good in the log. Air fuel was good. Timing was conservative still. It did overshoot the target boost that I was going for a little bit. I was going for about 17 PSI and it went up to about 20. But everything was good at that boost, and it hit boost cut because it was a little bit higher than I wanted to go. And so then when I let out, one of the freeze plugs popped out on the back of the head. So yeah, we played around with it a little bit on what we were gonna do, put a new plug in, or just, we ended up tapping the other plug back in and went in a little bit too far. Like we were just test fitting it, and so we couldn't get it back out. So what I ended up doing is just jamming it back in there, and we started it up, drove it around, put it back in the trailer, called it for the day. Yeah, we'll just have to figure out what's going on with it tonight. Hopefully try to fix it, because we got a race tomorrow. Tiny's got some ideas. We're gonna try out her ideas. Motion Raceworks sells those little brackets, so we're gonna try to make something similar at home and see if we can put it back in there. The problem that we might run into is that if it popped out because there was a bunch of coolant pressure, then obviously we got a head gasket problem. But the reason why I don't think that was the case, and I think maybe there's been a couple of nights where it's been close to freezing in the forecast, and it said that it was going to be like 33, 34, and I was like, well, that's above freezing, so it's probably going to be okay. Well, it might have been colder than that and froze. And so it might have pushed one or two of those plugs a little bit further out than it was supposed to be, weakened it, and then came out, because no coolant went into the overflow reservoir. So to me, I would think there wasn't any excessive pressure in there. There was just too much pressure for that weakened plug. Fingers crossed, that's what I'm hoping. That's gonna do it for this one. We'll get right back to it. The next video will be us trying to figure out if we can fix this damn thing, and hopefully racing tomorrow. So gonna get back to the shop right now and see what we can do. Like, share, subscribe as normal. Leave in the comments what you thought of the video and what you think of the new turbo.
It's not big enough.
It's not big, it's freaking huge. All right, we'll see you guys next time.